The largest meteorite and largest piece of iron ever found is the Hoba meteorite. It was discovered in 1920 in Namibia by a farmer who was plowing his field. The meteorite weighs 66 tons and measures 8.9 feet long and 8.9 feet wide and about 3 feet thick. Experts estimate that it fell to Earth about 80,000 years ago. Cows, sheep, and goats all have a tough dental pad below their top lip instead of front teeth. This dental arrangement helps ruminants gather great quantities of grass and fibrous plants. When the Krakatoa volcano in Indonesia erupted in 1883, the sound it made could be heard thousands of miles away in Australia and the island of Rodriguez. It was the loudest sound ever recorded on the planet. The microscopic tardigrade, also known as water bear or moss piglet, is one of the world's toughest creatures. It can go a decade without water and can withstand temperatures as low as minus 459 degrees Fahrenheit and as high as 304 degrees Fahrenheit. Adult rats can fit through a hole as small as a quarter or a gap less than 1 inch wide. This is how rats can infest your home without your knowledge. According to researchers at the National Hansen's Disease Programs in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the armadillo is one of the few mammals that harbor the bacteria that causes leprosy. There is a musical road in Lancaster, California. It was created as a TV ad for Honda. The road is cut into grooves that when traveling about 50 miles per hour, it will actually play William Tell's Overture. From 1956 to 1958, Chrysler offered a record player in its new cars called the Highway Hi-Fi. But it was short-lived because they had a tendency to, break. Author, American sex therapist, and media personality Dr. Ruth was trained as a sniper when she was just 16 years old by the underground Jewish military organization Haganah in Israel. Crocodiles can hold their breath underwater for up to 2 hours if they need to. The colder the water, the longer that they can stay under because a cold crocodile uses less energy and oxygen than a warm one. The 1925 released film Ben-Hur was the most expensive silent film ever made, costing between $4 to $6 million at that time. Actress Margaret Hamilton, who is most remembered for her scary portrayal of the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz and terrifying children everywhere, was actually a kindergarten teacher before she got into acting. In Spain and France, the tooth fairy is a mouse. Known as the La Bonne Petite Souris, the tiny mouse will procure teeth left under pillows, replacing them with either cash or sweets. In 1985, Lynette Woodard became the first woman to play for the Harlem Globetrotters. Since then, she has played in the WNBA and has been inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame and Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. If you have delusions where you think you're a wolf or another wild animal, you suffer from what's called lycanthropy. India has 23 official languages. While Hindi is the official language of the central government in India, with English as a provisional official sublanguage, individual state legislatures are free to adopt any regional language as the official language of that state. There's an annual sidewalk egg frying contest on the 4th of July in Oatman, Arizona. Contestants are given 15 minutes to fry 2 eggs using only solar power. They can use mirrors, magnifying glasses, and aluminum to help speed up the process. Pablo Picasso's full name was, brace yourself for this, Pablo Diego Jose Francisco de Paula Juan Nepomuceno Crispin Crispiniano Maria Remedios de la Santissima Trinidad Ruiz Picasso. The Library of Congress is the largest library in the world. It has more than 162 million items, over 838 miles of bookshelves, more than 38 million books and print materials, 3.6 million recordings, 14 million photos, 5.5 million maps, 7.1 million pieces of sheet music, and 70 million manuscripts. The Philippines hangs their flag upside down when it's at war. This actually caused great confusion and tension in 2010 when the flag was displayed upside down behind the president at the time when he met with President Obama and other leaders of the Assembly of Southeast Asian Nations. Everyone kind of thought it was an act of war. Baby hedgehogs are born with quills, but they are soft and flexible. In the early days of the Indy 500, most of the cars had 2 seats, one for the driver and one for the onboard mechanic. The mechanic monitored the gauges, made repairs, and sometimes would even massage massage the driver's arms and neck. The onboard mechanic was mandatory from 1912 to 1922, and then again from 1930 to 1937. On November 14, 1969, the Apollo 12 was struck by lightning just 36 seconds after liftoff, and moments later it was struck again. The second strike tore through the ship and wiped out many of its electrical systems. One of the flight controllers remembered how to switch the spacecraft's signaling conditioning equipment to auxiliary, and the Apollo 12 was able to actually continue on to successfully land on the moon. Actress Megan Fox suffers from papyrophobia, which is the fear of dry paper. In the 16th century up until the 1960s, Egyptian mummies were actually ground up and used to produce a brown paint color called mummy brown. The powder was mixed with white pitch and myrrh to produce a rich brown pigment. During the Vietnam War, US fighter jets would drop their external fuel tanks over Vietnam when they were empty or the pilot needed more maneuverability. Vietnamese farmers would then repurpose them and use them as canoes. A 68-year-old grandmother from West Wales had her car followed and swarmed for 2 days by 20,000 bees. They were actually trying to rescue their queen bee, which unbeknownst to her had hitched a ride in her Mitsubishi Outlander. Beekeepers were brought in to safely remove them. The hood ornament on a Rolls-Royce car is actually called the Spirit of Ecstasy. In 1974, Gerber Baby Products tried marketing Singles by Gerber, which were meals in a jar like creamed beef and beef burgundy. Marketing was aimed to college students and young adults. But believe it or not, the product failed. In 1965, Mattel released Slumber Party Barbie. Apparently, one of her Slumber Party essentials was a pink scale that was permanently set to 110 pounds. Makoto Igarashi from Tokyo developed the Hizamakura lap pillow, which is a cushion shaped like a woman's legs wearing a miniskirt that you can lay your head down on for maternal feelings. During World War II, Germany used guns that had a curved barrel device that was clamped onto the end of an MP-44 rifle that allowed soldiers to shoot over obstacles without exposing themselves to return fire. Sea scallops have about 60 eyes. They can be a bright blue color and help the scallop detect light, dark, and motion. Think about that next time you order them at a restaurant. Boxer Muhammad Ali's star on the Walk of Fame is on the wall, not on the pavement, because he didn't want the name of Muhammad to be stepped on. Writer and director Oliver Stone received a Purple Heart and Bronze Star for his services in the Vietnam War. Breastfed babies poop more than formula-fed babies because breast milk contains immunoglobulins, substances produced by the body's immune system, which works like a natural laxative. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC, as of 2014, 1 in 68 children, or more specifically 1 in 42 boys and 1 in 189 girls, has autism spectrum disorder, which includes a wide range of symptoms, skills, and different levels of disability. In 2014, scientists discovered the earliest evidence of human footprints. These were outside of Africa on the Norfolk coast in the east of England. The footprints were found on the shores of Happisburgh and were more than 800,000 years old. Every single spring, Sweetwater, Texas has a rattlesnake roundup. For 3 days, snake hunters bring in their catches, which end up being thousands of snakes, for which they are paid $5 for every pound. The Junior Chamber of Commerce began the tradition back in 1958 to address the overpopulation of snakes. In Indonesia, whole smoked bats are considered a delicacy. When important Vikings died, they were put into a burial ship along with their clothes and jewelry, where they were either buried or set on fire and pushed out to sea. In Victorian times, children as young as 5 years old were used as chimney sweeps. They were sent up the chimney, some of them as narrow as 12 inches, to clean out soot and debris. And if they got stuck, the master chimney sweeper would light a fire to encourage them to continue working. But some of them just got stuck and died of suffocation. Between 1347 and 1350, the bubonic plague, also known as Black Death, killed 20 million people in Europe. That was 30% of the continent's population at the time. Balut is a national delicacy in the Philippines. It's a fertilized duck egg or duck embryo that is boiled and eaten from the shell. The bootlace worm is the largest species of ribbon worm. They can grow up to 197 feet in length, which is longer than a blue whale. The proper medical term for burping or belching is eructation. On March 26, 1997, 39 members of the Heaven's Gate cult committed mass suicide because they believed that their souls would be transported to a spaceship that was following the Hale-Bopp comet. The Satre Mawe Indians initiate their boys at the age of 13 by making them wear gloves made of bullet ants for 10 minutes. They are repeatedly bitten, which is incredibly painful, but must not cry out if they want to be declared a man. The Komodo dragon is the national animal of Indonesia. The distance from Mars to the Sun is 128,437,425 miles at its closest point, and 154,845,701 miles at its furthest. In 1965, Apollo astronauts traveled to Iceland as field training because it's the place that looks the most like the moon because of its lack of vegetation and volcanic geology. Great Smoky Mountains National Park, that sits between the border of North Carolina and Tennessee, is America's most visited national park. In 2015, it had 10,712,674 visitors. That's a whole lot of people. On September 4th, 2016, Pope Francis canonized Mother Teresa, officially making her Saint Teresa. This almost 20 years after her passing in 1997. President James A. Garfield was president for less than 4 months before he was assassinated. However, interestingly, the shot in the back was not fatal, as it did not hit any of his vital organs. The bullet lodged behind his pancreas. As it turns out, it was the doctors that killed him, as if they had just left him alone, he almost certainly would have survived. Orcas, also known as killer whales, are actually dolphins. In fact, they are the largest of the dolphin family. Insects don't breathe the same way that we do. Oxygen gets into the insect's tissues through tiny openings in the body walls called spiracles, and then through tiny air-filled tubes called trachea. Well, at least they don't breathe with their butts or something. That'd be terrifying. There are eagles, such as the harpy eagle, that lives in the tropical forests of Central and South America, that are strong enough to hunt and kill sloths and monkeys. The female can actually kill prey that weigh up to 20 pounds. There is an animal that has a stronger smell than a skunk. The lesser anteater gives off a pungent odor that's about 4 to 7 times stronger than that of a skunk. In fact, you can smell it up to 164 feet away. Oh god, no. Oh, skunks are bad enough. The first baseball hats were made of straw. They were first worn by the New York Knickerbockers on April 24th, 1849. Sea anemones are able to reproduce by cloning themselves. They can actually reproduce in a variety of ways, but most commonly asexually, budding off what are essentially identical twins from a single specimen. There is a marathon in the North Pole every year billed the coolest marathon. It's 26.22 miles long, and the marathon runners have to dress in thermal layers, windproof pants, and goggles due to the below zero temperatures. Original jack-o'-lanterns were carved from turnips, potatoes, and beets, not pumpkins. In the 1948 US presidential election, the Chicago Daily Tribune mistakenly announced that Thomas Dewey won the presidential race instead of Harry S. Truman. The birth of fake news. In the 1700s, when coins were actually made of real gold and silver, criminals would shave down the sides of the coins and sell the shavings. To stop this from happening, the US Mint began adding ridges to the coins, a process called reeding, to make it impossible to shave down without being detected, and also making counterfeiting more difficult. Today, no coins are made from precious metals, but the tradition has continued on coins of higher value. The reeding also helps the visually impaired to tell the difference between coins. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, there's a love motel for dogs. The rooms are decorated with satin sheets, romantic music, and heart-shaped ceiling mirrors. You can rent a room for your frisky pooch for 2 hours for about $50. It's illegal in Atlanta, Georgia, to tie a giraffe to a telephone pole or street lamp. Take a moment to think about that. The underside of a horse's hoof is called a frog. When honey is swallowed, it reaches the bloodstream within just 20 minutes. The toughest and hardest substance in our bodies isn't our bones, it's our tooth enamel. This is a good thing because your dental enamel has to withstand heat and cold, as well as biting into hard substances. As the most mineralized substance in your body, tooth enamel is layer upon layer of minerals that protect the inner portions of your teeth from damage and decay. According to Guinness World Records, Verkhoyanski in Russia is the place with the greatest temperature range. Temperatures range there from minus 90.4 degrees Fahrenheit to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a range of 105 degrees. And I thought Canada was bad. Yeesh. 28 grams or a single ounce of gold can be stretched into a wire that is about 56 miles long. This is because of the extremely high ductility of gold. The full official name of the state of Rhode Island is Rhode Island in Providence Plantations. In 2009, the General Assembly voted on whether to keep the original longer name or shorten it once and for all. But they voted to keep it, just nobody really uses it. When the Statue of Liberty was shipped from France to New York, it was 350 pieces and packed in 214 crates. IKEA doesn't seem so bad now, does it? A baby echidna or platypus is called a puggle. 23-year-old chef Zhang Ziguang from China taught his puppy how to smoke cigarettes. He would blow smoke in his face to get him used to the smell and use treats to get him to hold the cigarette in his mouth. It took a month, but the puppy eventually was smoking a pack a day. The chewed end of a cigar smoked by Sir Winston Churchill sold at auction for £2,000. It was retrieved from his ashtray by a nurse who was looking after him while he was recuperating from a broken hip in Middlesex Hospital in 1962. The fur that grows on the inside of the ears of cats is called ear furnishings. Although scientists don't know why, Caucasians tend to get gray hair first, and redheads earliest of all. Asians are the next likely to go gray, followed by African Americans. Lions and jaguars react to catnip pretty much the same way that domestic cats do, sniffing and licking and rubbing their chins and bodies on the item that it was sprayed on. Earwax isn't wax at all. The technical term for it is cerumen, and it consists mostly of shedded layers of skin. It's about 60% keratin, 12 to 20% saturated and unsaturated long-chain fatty acids, squalene, alcohols, and between 6 to 9% cholesterol. Drinking too much water can be just as harmful to your health as not drinking enough water. It can actually cause nausea and vomiting, headache, and changes in your mental state such as confusion or disorientation. This is known as overhydration and can lead to water intoxication. The toga was allowed to be worn only by free Roman citizens. Foreigners and exiled citizens could not appear in public wearing one. The growling noises that your stomach make when you're hungry are caused by the muscular activity in the walls of your stomach and small intestines. There are contractions in the stomach that break down ingested foods and move gas. Those movements cause vibrations, and it's the vibrations that cause the growling sound. The first email ever was sent in 1971 by computer engineer Ray Tomlinson. He sent messages to himself from one machine to the other. Flying squirrels can't actually fly, but they can glide through the air for distances up to 295 feet. October 2nd is Wrongful Conviction Day. It was launched by the Association of Defense of the Wrongfully Convicted to bring awareness to people who have been convicted of crimes that they didn't commit. The world's most expensive coffee is the Kopi Luwak. It's made from coffee beans that are partially digested and then pooped out by a creature called the civet. The civet's digestive enzymes change the structure of the protein in the coffee beans, which removes some of the acidity. This makes for a smoother cup of poop coffee. A cup of Kopi Luwak can cost as much as $80. The first lyrics to the Beatles song Yesterday were scrambled eggs. Paul McCartney woke up one morning with the melody in his head, and to remember the melody until lyrics could be written for the tune, he went around the house humming scrambled eggs, baby, I love scrambled eggs. After dropping out from school, Simon Cowell from X Factor and American Idol worked as a runner on the set of the movie The Shining. According to a study done by researchers from the Yale University of Public Health in June of 2016, people who read books live an average of 2 years longer than those who didn't. When a blue whale exhales, the spray that comes out of its blowhole can reach nearly 30 feet into the air. Ichthyophilia is the fear of seeing, thinking about, or having an erect penis. The origin of the word ichthy is Greek, meaning straight, and phallo is Greek, meaning penis, and phobia is Greek, meaning fear. The male emperor moth can detect pheromones from the female emperor moth from miles away. The garfish or needlefish has greenish blue colored bones. The color is caused by a pigment called biliverdin. The pound key or hashtag on the keyboard is called an octothorpe. Hashtag octothorpe, hashtag terms you'll never use, hashtag is better. Female pandas usually give birth to a single cub, but if she has 2 cubs, she will normally take care of one and abandon the other. Smelling rubbing alcohol can actually help temporarily get rid of nausea. This is due to the isopropyl in the alcohol pads, which reduced nausea and vomiting after 3 or 4 deep breaths. This was discovered by nursing researchers at Shawnee Mission Medical Center in Kansas. On Yakushima Island in Japan, the macaque monkey has been known to ride sika deer around like horses. There is a museum of bad art in Boston. It is the world's only museum to be dedicated to bad art in all of its forms. There are adventure parks in England called Diggerland, where you can drive and operate real tractors, dump trucks, and other full-size construction machinery. Yay, I'm in a tractor. Yeah, so excited. Researchers at Ohio State University have discovered something that they're calling experience talking. It's where while reading a book or story, people actually change their behavior or thoughts to match those of a fictional character in a book or story that they can identify with. They subconsciously become that character. The life expectancy of people with Down syndrome has increased from 25 in 1983 to 60 today. According to research done by Eric Prather, assistant professor of psychiatry at the University of California, you are 4 times more likely to get a cold if you get less than 6 hours of sleep per night. Actor Tom Cruise is only 5.6 feet tall. Biologists led by Koji Nishida at the Osaka University in Japan have discovered a new way to grow parts of the human eye like the retina, cornea, lens, etc. just by using a small sample of adult skin. According to a study done in 2013 by researchers at the Harvard School of Public Health, drinking several cups of coffee daily appears to reduce the risk of suicide in men and women by about 50%. US politician Henry Kissinger was the person who convinced Brazilian soccer great Pele to play in the United States. Some marine birds, like the penguin, have a supraorbital gland located just above their eyes that can remove sodium chloride from their bloodstream. It works just like our kidneys, removing salt, which allows the penguin to survive without access to fresh water. The penguin excretes the salt byproduct as brine through its bill. In 2016, according to the brand management firm Intrabrand's annual ranking of the best global brands, Apple was #1 for the 4th year in a row with a brand value of $178 billion, and Google was #2 with a brand value of $133 billion. Facebook, on the other hand, was the fastest growing company at a whopping 48%. According to the Guinness World Records, the largest mouth in the world belongs to the bowhead whale. It can measure up to 16 feet long, 13 feet high, and 8 feet wide. Its tongue alone weighs almost 2,000 pounds. The fastest recorded avalanche in history was the volcanic explosion of Mount St. Helens on May 18, 1980. The velocity reached was 250 miles per hour. The Concorde jet that had its last flight in 2003 had a maximum speed of 1,350 miles per hour. It could fly from London, England to New York City in about 3 hours, about half the time of other passenger planes. Artist Bart Jansen and the radio control helicopter expert Arjun Beltman turned Bart's dead beloved pet cat Orville into a remote-controlled helicopter. They dubbed him the Orville-copter. I dub him just creepy. A study recently published in the Journal of Neurobiology of Aging shows that the more flights of stairs a person climbs and the more years of school a person completes, the younger the brain physically looks. Researcher Jason Steffener, a scientist at Concordia's Perform Center, found that the brain age decreases by 0.95 years for each year of education, and it decreases 0.58 years for every daily flight of stairs climbed. According to research done in 2012, published in the Journal of Chemosensory Perception, people who scored high on a test for psychopathy had more problems being able to tell different smells apart and also identifying smells. In other words, if you have impaired smell, you could be a psychopath. San Francisco is the first major US city to require that all new buildings have solar panels installed on the roof. According to a study done by the University of New South Wales, good manners go a long way. The study found that going out of your way to say thank you makes people see you as a person with greater interpersonal warmth. It can also make you a happier person. If you were to drop a steel ball and a rubber ball of the same size from the same height, the steel ball will actually bounce higher because it snaps back to its original shape faster than the rubber ball. The world's oldest lighthouse is the Tower of Hercules in Spain. It was erected in the 1st century and is still operational. Pakistan's parliament is the first parliament in the world to be completely powered by solar energy. President Calvin Coolidge had a pet raccoon named Rebecca. She was originally supposed to be eaten at their 1926 White House Thanksgiving dinner, but the Coolidge family found her to be friendly and docile and decided to keep her as a pet instead. Both of those things are incredibly weird. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson played football for the CFL's Calgary Stampeders back in 1995 before he went into wrestling and acting. Bill Gates received an honorary knighthood from Queen Elizabeth, but because he's American, he cannot use the title Sir. Lawn darts with pointy, elongated tips are actually banned in Canada. Steve Gerling, the master builder at Lego, had never touched a single Lego before he started his job. Apollo 16 astronaut Charles Duke, who at that time was the youngest human in history at 36 to walk on the moon, left behind a photo of his family with the inscription, "This is the family of astronaut Charlie Duke from the planet Earth who landed on the moon on April 20th, 1972. The picture is still there to this day. A small bat was seen clinging to the orange external fuel tank of the Space Shuttle Discovery during its March 15th, 2009 launch. According to the Guinness World Records, the first human cannonball was a woman named Rosa Zazel Richter in 1877. She was shot at a distance of about 20 feet at Westminster Aquarium in London, England. Rockefeller Center receives an average of 470,000 visitors on any given weekday and almost 800,000 during the holiday season. The warehouse scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark was actually a matte painting created by artist Michael Pangrazio. It took him 3 months to create, was painted on glass, and the live action shots were actually done through a hole in it. Robert Benke, a Wisconsin dairy farmer, owns the queen cow of milk production. His cow Gigi has produced more milk in 1 year than any other cow at 8,700 gallons. That's 3 times the national average for a dairy cow to produce in a year. Since 2003, the Japanese town of Kemikatsu has been trying to become the country's first zero-waste community by the year 2020. They already recycle 80% of their waste and currently have 34 different recycling categories. A giant granite ball in the Russian city of Yekaterinburg was painted to look like a giant Pokeball. According to Professor Charles B. Gerba of the University of Arizona's Department of Soil, Water, and Environmental Science, 20% of office coffee mugs carry fecal bacteria. You drinking poop. 47% of the world's mail volume is handled by the United States Postal Service. Scientists estimate that a single ragweed plant can release 1 billion grains of pollen over the course of a single season and can travel hundreds of miles on a gentle breeze. The great white shark is an example of an apex predator, which means as an adult it has no natural predators in its ecosystem. In 2003, professional wrestler Macho Man Randy Savage made a rap album called Be a Man. According to researchers at the Donald O. Perelman Department of Dermatology at the New York University School of Medicine, the higher up you are in altitude, the higher your risk of getting sunburned. And it's quite a bit more, approximately 60% higher. During the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games, the procession is always led by the Greek team, followed by the other teams in alphabetical order, and the last team is always the team of the hosting country. There's an isopod called the Cymothua exigua that eats fish tongues and then becomes the fish's tongue. Researchers at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, raised a fish called the Polypterus. It can breathe air and walk on land using its front fins. When lobsters fight or flirt with each other, they actually squirt urine at each other's faces from little urine release nozzles under their eyes. I'm going to pee on you. In 2006, the Haosheng Hospital in Japan decorated their maternity ward with all Hello Kitty themed murals and items to help calm anxious mothers. The cartoon image is on everything from walls to newborn baby blankets. A giant Hello Kitty figure is dressed in a pink doctor's uniform that even greets visitors in the lobby. Pike County farmer and loyal Democrat Valentine Tapley vowed to never trim his beard again if Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860. And he kept his word. His beard grew to 12.5 feet long. According to a study done by NASA, an astronaut's heart becomes more spherical and loses muscle mass while in space. Once they're back on Earth, however, the shape returns to normal. In 1964, a pair of Australian scientists, Isabel Joy Baer and R.G. Thomas, did a study to determine what causes that powerful, wonderful scent of fresh rain. They determined that it's a mixture of plant oils that are secreted by some plants after an arid period, bacterial spores, and ozone. On March 29, 1867, the United States bought 586,412 square miles of land at the northwestern tip of the North American continent, which is the current state of Alaska, from Russia. They paid $7.2 million, which amounted to about 2 cents per acre. Disney parks can actually refuse you access to their parks if they find that you have an objectionable tattoo. Cats can actually get something called whisker stress from eating or drinking out of a bowl that's too small. Whiskers are very sensitive to pressure, and anytime they come close to something, it triggers a sensation in your cat. If you see your cat trying to scoop out food with their paw, it might mean that they have whisker stress. According to a study published in Behavioral Ecology, birds are 3 times less likely to peck or grab black widow spiders that have the red hourglass markings than those without. All tattoos in North Korea must carry praise of the Kim family or carry a teaching of the state. They must have a political purpose. For example, guard the great leader to our death, or we are the general's offspring. That's creepy. Google has created a gigapixel art camera for preserving paintings. It was created by the Google Cultural Institute and can scan a 3-foot by 3-foot painting in complete detail in 30 minutes, where it used to take a full day. There is an iOS app called MathPix that can answer math equations in seconds. Take a picture of a handwritten math problem and it will give you the answer and step-by-step directions on how it got there. In some locations in Sweden, McDonald's has Happy Meal boxes that fold into virtual reality viewers that are called Happy Goggles. Cats and dogs can be diagnosed with diabetes just like humans. It's estimated that 1 out of every 100 dogs that reaches the the age of 12 years old will develop diabetes, and in cats, it's estimated that 1 in every 250 will develop diabetes. In Sri Lanka, the elephant is protected under the Sri Lankan law, and killing one carries the death penalty. Mystery writer and playwright Agatha Christie was dyslexic. In 2005, the Vermont Teddy Bear Co. put out a Valentine bear called Crazy For You Bear that came wearing a straitjacket and commitment papers. It was a really big seller until advocates for the mentally ill protested it and the company stopped making them. Since the Second World War in 1947, Norway has sent over a giant Norwegian spruce Christmas tree to Britain as a symbol of Norwegian gratitude to the United Kingdom for preserving Norwegian liberty. About 10,000 Londoners gather in Trafalgar Square to participate in Christmas carols and to see the tree being lit. You can now buy K-Cups infused with medicine. CVS has released a line of Keurig pods that brew up a medicine-infused tea. You can get a non-drowsy daytime pod that makes a berry menthol-infused green tea with the same ingredients that are in other non-drowsy cold and flu medications, and a nighttime one with honey lemon-infused chamomile and white tea. 102 St. Louis, Missouri woman Edie Sims got herself arrested by the police so that she could cross get arrested off of her bucket list. The friendly police were happy to handcuff her and put her in the back of the police car to help her reach her goal. 12 South, a company that specialized in selling Mac accessories, sells a candle that smells like an Apple MacBook that has just been removed from the box. The candle costs $24 and is made up of soy wax that is scented with mint, peach, sage, lavender, basil, and mandarin. And if you buy this, you're a little too obsessed with Apple products, let's be honest. When bread is stored in the fridge instead of at room temperature, it goes stale 6 times faster. Singer Selena Gomez has the most Instagram followers with more than 121 million followers. Starting September 28, 2016, McDonald's Japan will start selling pumpkin spice fries. The Halloween Choco Potato, as they're called, are French fries drizzled with a pumpkin spiced sauce and chocolate sauce. I'm not gonna lie, that doesn't sound too bad. The Carolina Reaper Madness chip is the spiciest chip in the world. It's sold as a single and comes in a coffin-shaped package. The Reaper pepper holds the Guinness World Record for the hottest chili pepper on Earth. And the Carolina Reaper Madness chip is also seasoned with ghost peppers and chipotle seasoning. There is a smart candle called the Ludila that can be lit and extinguished by using a smartphone app. Scientists and graduate student Core Hewitt have made a material that can turn heat from your body into an electrical current. The new material is called Power Felt. In Japan, boiled, fried, or even raw tuna eyes are considered a delicacy. Ugh. At No Regrets Farm in Albany, Oregon, you can take a yoga class with goats. There is a gift shop at the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office called Skeletons in the Closet. There's a replica of the 1948 original In-N-Out Burger at its original location on the intersection of Francis Guido and Garvey in Baldwin Park, California, that contains a cigarette machine, the original potato dicer, and a frying station. There are something called Paternoster elevators in Germany. These elevators terrifyingly have no doors. They go floor to floor on a loop, and you can hop out when you get to your floor. There's a book called Fat Brad the Cookbook that is based on all the foods that actor Brad Pitt has eaten on screen. Hong Kong has a cafe called Rabbitland. There are 12 bunnies, most of which were abandoned by their previous owners, that customers can pet. It caters to people who don't have the space for their own rabbit. The male seahorse becomes pregnant instead of the female. The female passes her unfertilized eggs to the sperm-producing male, where they are fertilized and then are kept in a sealable brood pouch on the male. 10 to 25 days later, the male gives birth to thousands of babies. You can buy a gold-plated Sony Walkman. It will cost you a cool $3,680. It was created as the Japanese electronics giant focuses on higher-end products in its audio division. It's impossible to hum with your nose completely plugged. Try it. Automatinophobia is the fear of ventriloquist dummies
animatronic creatures, wax statues, or anything that represents a being that appears to have feelings or perceptions. Paris has passed a law that allows anyone to plant an urban garden anywhere within the city. According to research done at King's College London, adolescents who have acne stay looking youthful longer than those who have clear skin. Since the end of World War II, Canada has been naming thousands of unnamed lakes after fallen soldiers. Basketball star Stephen Curry was the first person in the 61 years of balloting to win the NBA MVP award by unanimous vote. Earthworms are simultaneous hermaphrodites, which means that they have both male and female reproductive organs. In August of 2016, KFC released an SPF 30 sunscreen that smells like fried chicken. It was put out to promote their extra crispy recipe. The honorary mayor of Cormorant Township in Minnesota is in his 3rd term. I should probably mention that his name is Duke and he's a 9-year-old Great Pyrenees dog. Harvard University researchers have created the first autonomous, untethered, and entirely soft robot. It is a small 3D printed robot nicknamed Octobot. Actress Jessica Alba graduated from high school at the age of 16, but didn't go to college because she was already a successful actress. In 2016, Drake beat Michael Jackson's record for the most American Music Award nominations in 1 year. He had 13 nominations, which beat Jackson's 11 from 1984. Squids, octopuses, and cuttlefish are all animals that have the ability to change color of their skin in the blink of an eye in order to blend in with their surroundings. The medical term for a runny nose is rhinorrhea. In May of 2007, supermodel Tyra Banks will co-teach a course on creating and maintaining a personal brand at Stanford's Graduate School of Business. Actor Chris Pratt was discovered by actress and director Ray Don Chong while he was working as a waiter at the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company in Hawaii. In the United Kingdom, Pizza Hut has unveiled the world's first working DJ turntable made from a pizza box. It was created alongside Cambridge-based printed electronics firm Novalia. You unfold the box and you can play music. Warren Buffett was only 11 years old when he made his first investment. He bought 3 shares of Citi Service Preferred at $38 per share. He sold his shares when they reached $40 and later regretted it because they later shot up to $200 a share. He cites this experience as an early lesson in having patience while investing. There are coffin clubs where senior citizens get together and build their own customized coffins. That's a little creepy. According to a study done at the University of Edinburgh, people who smoke large amounts of cannabis in their lifetime, which is 5,000 or more times, have reduced bone density and are more prone to fractures. Bud Light is the best-selling beer in America, followed by Coors Light and then regular Budweiser. Salmonophobia is the morbid fear of Halloween.
According to the Guinness World Records, scientists at the University of Nottingham hold the record for writing the world's smallest periodic table. They engraved it onto a strand of hair that belonged to green chemist Professor Martin Polyakov by using a beam of accelerated gallium ions and imaging. The pistol shrimp can stun its prey by using its claws. They have a large claw, and when they snap it shut, it generates an intense burst of sound that stuns its prey. They also have a punch that's faster than a .22 caliber bullet that literally smashes their prey into pieces. The word testify comes from the Latin word for testicle. In ancient Rome, 2 men taking an oath of allegiance held each other's testicles, and men held their own testicles as a sign of truthfulness while bearing witness in a public forum. You gonna tell the truth, bruh? Cause I got you exactly where I want you. Uranus is the only planet that rotates on its side. Its spin axis lies 98 degrees off of its orbital plane with the sun. No other planet is tilted more than 30 degrees off its axis. Vice President Andrew Johnson took his vice presidential oath while completely drunk. He had been suffering from typhoid fever in the weeks before and downed 3 glasses of medicinal whiskey to prepare himself. He rambled on in a drunken stupor for 17 minutes.
No, yeah, I'd back up the president. Why not?
As of July 2011, the Hubble Space Telescope has made over over 1 million observations. The 21 years worth of observations have produced nearly 50 terabytes of data, and it generates more than 80 gigabytes of data every month. In 2012, Planned Parenthood of the Greater Northwest gave away 55,000 condoms with QR tracking codes on them to students at Western Washington colleges. The students could then scan the codes and answer detailed questions about where you had sex and if you used a condom and how it was, etc. It then puts a pin on the map and asked if you wanted to share it to Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, because that's what every student wants to do, share their detailed sexual history with Facebook. A violin has been developed at Imperial College London that uses 3 strands of golden silk spun by an Australian golden orb spider. The composite material of silk fibers and a binding agent can be mixed to customize different sounds and can be used to improve or vary the acoustic properties of the instrument. Actor Ashton Kutcher was the 500th person to purchase a round-trip ticket on Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two rocket plane. One ticket goes for $200,000, which actually isn't that bad to go to the moon if you think about it. According to a Gallup poll, as of February 2016, New Hampshire is the least religious state. Only 20% of people in New Hampshire are actually religious. Swiss adventurer Raphael Domjan has created a solar plane that is set to become the first ever solar plane to reach the stratosphere. It's a sleek white 2-seater with long wings that are covered with 237 square feet of solar panels. The Milky Way is about 100,000 light years across. The University of Pennsylvania's GRASP lab designed a robot to pick up dog poop. It's called the Poop Scoop, which is short form for Perception of Offensive Products and Sensorized Control of Object Pickup. It's capable of finding and removing 95% of offensive droppings at a rate of 1 poopy a minute. Xenophyophores are one of the world's largest living single-celled organisms. Some groups live in the deepest part of Marianas Trench, which is 6.2 miles deep. A flea can jump 100 times its height. They push off from the ground or pet by using their toes. They take off at speeds at 3 miles per hour and reach speeds as high as 4.3 miles per hour. The United States produces 30% of the world's waste, uses 25% of the world's natural resources, and approximately 46% of the lakes in America are extremely polluted and hence risky for swimming, fishing, and aquatic life. The largest solar power plant in the world is located in the Mojave Desert in California. It covers 1.56 square miles. Spam accounts for 14.5 billion messages globally a day. That's 45% of all emails. Some research companies estimate that spam email may make up an even greater portion of global emails, up to even 73%, with the United States being the #1 generator of spam email, with Korea clocking in as the second biggest contributor. There's a super-powered electron microscope called the SuperStem 3 that can examine objects 1,000,000 times smaller than a human hair. After death, rigor mortis sets in within 2 to 6 hours of the death, starting with the eyelids, neck, and then jaw.
'Cause you needed to know that creepy fact.
In China, ground bees are used as a remedy for a sore throat. Or, you could just mix some honey into a delightful warm tea, but hey, to each their own. The Taponoma sessile, otherwise known as the odorous house ant, actually smells like rotten coconut when their bodies are crushed. The Long Now Foundation is building a clock that runs for 10,000 years and putting it in a West Texas cave. Rather than measuring time in minutes and seconds, the clock measures time in centuries and millennia. It has a century hand and has a cuckoo that will sound every 1,000 years at each new millennium. It's also programmed to chime periodically, with each chime sound being unique and never repeated. Most species of geckos actually have to have their tails pulled in order to shred it. However, a number of species are able to get rid of their tails at will. In many cases, the tails grow back, but if and when they do, they no longer have the bone structure that they originally have, and it's made of just cartilage. In 2013, scientists at MIT created an advanced fog harvesting material that enables these giant mist catchers to to generate 5 times more water. The world's first solar power ski lift was built in the Swiss town of Tenna in 2012. It has approximately 80 solar panels and can pull 800 skiers up the mountain per hour. In some China subway stations, people are employed to shove passengers into crowded trains in order to get the door shut as quickly as possible and avoid delays. Toronto, Ontario, Canada hosts over 75 film festivals every year. According to the Guinness World Records, the widest human mouth measures 6.7 inches and belongs to Francisco Domingo Joaquim Chanquino from Angola. There are tornadoes on the surface of the sun. In one instance in September of 2015, a giant swirling plume of superheated plasma churned above the surface of the sun for 40 hours and was captured on film by NASA. It was 5 million degrees Fahrenheit. Venice, Italy is not only sinking about 1 to 2 millimeters per year, it is also tilting slightly to the east. Billie Jean by Michael Jackson was the first video to air on MTV by a black artist. In 1979, The Muppet Show was actually banned in Saudi Arabia because of Miss Piggy. This is because the Prophet Muhammad declared the flesh of swine an abomination. Merchandise bearing her likeness was confiscated from shops and destroyed. That's a rude way to treat my girlfriend. The first letter Vanna White ever turned on the game show Wheel of Fortune was the letter T. Bagpipes, although largely identified with Scotland, were actually introduced to the British Isles by the Romans. The first rock and roll group to play at Carnegie Hall was Bill Haley and his Comets. They played a benefit concert on May 6, 1955. Superman co-creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster sold Superman to DC Comics for $130, later earning $25,000 per year for the rest of their lives. Not bad, but not great considering the franchise is now worth hundreds of millions today. In Disney's Fantasia, the sorcerer's name is Yen Sid, which is actually Disney spelt backwards. This is because Walt Disney himself was a big inspiration for the character. Music greats Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones, Amy Winehouse, and Jim Morrison were all 27 years old when they died. They're all part of the infamous 27 Club. Notorious serial killer Ted Bundy served as the assistant director of the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Commission. Perversely, he was the author of a pamphlet instructing women on rape prevention. A male kangaroo can hop up to 37 miles per hour and jump as high as 10 feet. Musician and singer Sting was born Gordon Matthew Thomas Sumner. He was given the nickname Sting by bandleader Gordon Solomon of the Phoenix Jazzmen because he would perform on stage in a sweater that made him look like a giant bee. According to the National Fire Protection Association, 1,345,500 fires were reported in the US in 2015 alone, and that number grows by almost 4% every year. For the first time since 1993, the life expectancy of US residents in 2015 declined by 0.1 years to 78.8. Americans' life expectancy is already lower than other developed countries like Canada, France, and Germany. And I just moved to LA, oh lord. There's a company called LifeGem that will create a certified high-quality diamond from the ashes of a loved one who has passed away, and that includes your pets. UK designer Stuart Hughes designed an iPhone for a Chinese businessman that was worth $15.3 million US. It's inlaid with 600 white diamonds, the Apple logo is made of solid gold and 53 white diamonds, and the screen has 135 grams of 24 karat gold and sapphire glass, and the home button is a rare 26 karat black diamond. When you know you have too much money. A baby hedgehog is called a hoglet. Take a moment to look at that and let yourself smile. Look at that little guy, he loves his face. If you laid the New York City subway system end to end, it would stretch from New York City to Chicago. It has 661 miles of main track. When a group of howler monkeys let loose with their howling, they can be heard up to 3.1 miles away. The only state in the United States that grows coffee is Hawaii. Most of the world's coffee is produced by countries located in the Bean Belt, basically the tropics, with Brazil ranked as the biggest coffee producing country in the world. In 1905, 11-year-old Frank Epperson from the San Francisco Bay Area invented the popsicle by accident. He left his sugar sugary soda powder that he mixed with water outside overnight, and the next morning it was frozen. He originally named it the Epsicle, but the name was eventually changed to Popsicle, which I think sounds a lot better. There's a phobia called allodoxophobia that's actually the fear of people's opinions. People with this live in constant fear and anxiety of hearing other people's opinions of them. A group of flamingos is called a flamboyance of flamingos. You can also call them a stand, a colony, or a regiment, but let's be honest, none of those are nearly as fabulous. Jean-Claude Van Damme was the person behind the original scenes shot for the movie Predator. However, he hated the suit that he had to wear and was instead replaced by actor Kevin Peter Hall. In 1922, Charles Osborne got a case of the hiccups that lasted until 1990. He was hiccuping 40 times a minute for 68 years. And possibly the weirdest thing is that when it stopped for unknown reasons. There was a cathedral called the Luminary de Cagna on display at the 2012 Light Festival in Belgium that was 92 feet high and lit by 55,000 LED lights. There's an oasis in the middle of the Gobi Desert called Crescent Lake. It's located 3.7 miles from the outskirts of the city of Dunhuang in western China and is believed to have been there for over 2,000 years. The New York Presbyterian Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital has a CT scan room that has been turned into a pirate-themed island. Children enter the room by walking on a plank and then lay on a boat-shaped table. There's such a thing as fainting goats. In fact, Tennessee holds a fainting goat festival. These goats are born with a condition called myotonia congenital, which causes their muscles to tense up for 10 to 20 seconds whenever they're spooked, which can cause them to easily faint. Barbie's full name is Barbara Millicent Roberts. Her creator, Ruth Handler, invented her back in 1959 and named her after her daughter Barbara. And if you're wondering, yes, Ken also has a full name too. It's Ken Carson. There are giant pink slugs found only in the subalpine reaches of Mount Kaputar, Australia. They can reach up to 8 inches long, and on a good day, you can see hundreds of them. Petaluma, California has been holding a world's ugliest dog contest since the 1970s. It's extremely competitive, and the world's ugliest title is a fiercely coveted one. Web designer Jill Hubley, who's based in Brooklyn, New York, created a detailed map identifying every single tree in New York City. She created it by using the last tree census data back in 2005. Somebody needs a hobby. On D-Day, at least 500 canvas dummies were dropped away from the Normandy beaches to distract from actual drop zones. The dummies, called Ruperts, were just under 3 feet tall, came with battle sounds, and were made to self-destruct upon landing so that the Germans couldn't find them. During World War II, because a lot of players were called to duty, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles were combined to make one team, the Steagles. During the building of the Hoover Dam, 96 people died from industrial fatalities such as drowning, blasting, falling rocks or rock slides, falls from the canyon wall, and truck accidents, etc. Slovakia and Slovenia are so often confused that the staff of Slovak and Slovenian embassies have to meet once a month to exchange wrongly addressed mail. The mortar used in the construction of the Great Pyramids of Giza is of unknown origin. It's been analyzed, and while the chemical composition is known, it cannot be reproduced and is stronger than stone. This is why it's still holding up today and was built sometime between 2540 and 2560 BC. The advertising character that you and I know as the Michelin Man has been used by the tire company off and on for 116 years. But the coolest thing is that he has an actual name. It's Bibendum. According to a study done in 2013 by Dr. Peter Jonasson from the University of Western Sydney School of Sciences and Psychology, people who wake up late at night are more likely to display antisocial personality traits such as Machiavellianism, narcissism, and have psychopathic tendencies. The first ever product to be sold by scanning a barcode was a 10-pack of juicy fruit gum. The transaction took place at 8:01 a.m. on June 26, 1974 at a Marsh supermarket in Troy, Ohio. Napoleon Bonaparte wore his black felted beaver fur hat sideways instead of with the points at the front and back so that he could be easily spotted on the battlefield. Almost 1 billion birds die each year in the United States due to collisions with glass. Although most people have seen or heard a bird hit a window, they often believe that it's an unusual event, but statistically it's not. In China, there's a delicacy called virgin boy eggs. These eggs are actually soaked in the urine of boys under the age of 10, and they collect the urine from school washrooms. It's believed that eating this can have health benefits. You can buy one for about 24 cents. No thanks. In South Korea, you can have a plastic surgery called smile lift, where they raise both corners of your mouth and give you a permanent smile. Isn't that what the Joker did? In China, you can buy baby Buddha-shaped pears. The farmers clamp a mold onto a growing fruit to get the shape. In addition to baby pears, a company called Fruit Mold manufactures heart-shaped cucumbers, square watermelons, and other more deliciously odd shapes. At the Austrian brewer Starkenberger's Castle, you can actually swim in beer. They have 7 13-foot pools filled with 42,000 pints of warm beer and some water where you can sit and relax completely immersed. The beer is rich in vitamins and calcium, and it's thought that sitting in it is good for the skin and can help cure open wounds and psoriasis. It can actually be considered rude to tip in Japan. If you do decide to tip something, the proper etiquette is to place the money in a tasteful decorative envelope, seal it, and then hand it to the recipient with a slight bow. The Philippines is the only country in the world that denies divorce to the majority of its citizens. They can file for legal separation, which will allow them to separate their possessions and live apart, but does not legally end the marital union and thus does not permit remarriage. German sneaker company Nat2 has created the first vegan wooden sneaker. They're made of up to 90% real sustainable wood, which is applied to an organic cotton and vector engraved in a way that the material bends and becomes soft and flexible like fine leather. On May 20th, 2016, a man named Aaron Chervenak drove all the way from Los Angeles to a little Vegas chapel in Las Vegas to marry his love, his smartphone. In an attempt to get fit and lose weight, 54-year-old Kong Yan from Jilin, China walks daily with an 88-pound rock balanced on his head. 7 Cent Brewery, located in Australia, has created a beer using the yeast isolated from the belly button lint of its brewers. London, England has a clothing optional restaurant called Bunyadi. It costs up to $95 a person for food and drinks, and you can choose between clothed and naked and pure seating areas where you will be served by semi-nude staff. The Dutch apparel company Cover has created jackets and bags that feature technology that blocks every in and outgoing signal, making the wearer completely untraceable by modern tracking devices such as computer chips embedded in credit cards, and can even take you off the cell phone grid. Product and graphic designer Ricky Ma constructed a life-sized robot that looks exactly like Scarlett Johansson. Creepy! It took him a year and a half and cost $50,000. He calls her Mark 1, which I don't know why he wouldn't just call her Scarlett, and she responds to a set of programmed verbal commands spoken into a microphone. There's a Romanian woman who knitted a vest made out of her own hair. She gathered all of the hair that fell out when she combed it from the age of 40 to 60 and eventually had enough hair to produce the article totaling 2.2 pounds. Also, you can buy toothpaste infused with caffeine that gives you a boost in the morning. Unlike coffee, Power Energy toothpaste takes effect almost immediately, making you more alert before you're even finished brushing. Today's gonna be a great day. The oldest inhabited house in Scotland is Traquair Castle. Located less than 30 miles from Edinburgh, it has been lived in for over 900 years and was originally a hunting lodge for the kings and queens of Scotland. Glass is 100% recyclable, and it can be recycled endlessly without loss in quality or purity. You can have brain surgery and not feel any pain because the brain itself does not have any pain receptors. Most Dalmatian puppies are born with solid white coats. The spots aren't visible until the puppies are about 10 days old. Bulls are actually colorblind. The matador's cape could be any color. It's the motion that attracts the bull's attention to charge, not the color red. It cost almost $25 million to build the Empire State Building. building. If you include the cost of land, it's closer to 41 million. Catfish have approximately 100,000 taste buds all over their bodies, most of them on their whiskers. Cranberries are called bounce berries by some people because they actually bounce when they're ripe. Europe is the only continent without at least one desert region. In order to qualify as a desert, an area must get less than 10 inches of rain per year. If you have an irrational fear of Friday the 13th, you have what's called frigga-triscade-cophobia. According to National Geographic, an elephant's trunk has 150,000 muscle units. Gloucestershire Airport in England used to blast Tina Turner music to scare off birds, and it worked better than blasting bird distress calls. In the United States, the government can legally read any emails that you have that are over 180 days old without a warrant. The Electronic Communications Privacy Act was enacted long before everybody had email, but the government says that the law still allows them to do this. India-based Gravity Labs has found a way to use pigment from carbon soot-polluted air to make pens, oil-based paints, and spray paint. A single air ink pen contains 30 to 40 minutes of carbon emissions from a single car. As of July 2016, Apple has sold over 1 billion iPhones. NASA's robotic spacecraft Juno traveled a total distance of 1.74 billion miles to arrive on the planet Jupiter. It launched from Cape Canaveral on August 5th, 2011, and arrived on Jupiter on July 4th, 2016. In California, on July 30th, 2016, 42-year-old paratrooper Luke Aikens became the first person to jump from an airplane without a parachute or wingsuit. He jumped 25,000 feet to Earth, setting a world record for the highest jump. He landed safely in a 100 square foot net. That's about 1/3 the size of a football field. Good thing he's got some accuracy. According to a study done in 2008, smells can influence our dreams. Subjects of the study, where the scent of roses were infused when they were dreaming, gave nearly all of them pleasant dreams. However, when the air around those subjects were infused with the smell of rotten eggs while they were dreaming, they had negative dreams. There's an inn in Idaho called the Dog Bark Park Inn, where guests can stay in the world's largest beagle. You enter the body of the beagle from a second-story deck. Up another level into the head of the dog is a loft, and there's an additional sleeping space and a cozy alcove in the muzzle. In 1958, Robert Lane from New York City named his son Winner and later another son Loser. Winner ended up as a criminal with a lengthy arrest record, and his son Loser went on to prep school on a scholarship, graduated from college, and joined the New York Police Department. The crew of Apollo 15 placed a small aluminum sculpture on the moon to memorialize fallen astronauts. In 1971, that number was 14. There's also a plaque bearing their names. Squirrels have actually been known to adopt another squirrel's baby if the parent dies. There are fireworks that can be set off in daylight by using colored smoke. That dark band that you can see between the primary and secondary bows of a rainbow has a name. It's been referred to as Alexander's Band or Alexander's Dark Band after Alexander of Aphrodisias first described it in 200 AD. The Chinese giant salamander is the world's largest living amphibian and can grow up to 6 feet long, which is bigger than some of you, and can weigh as much as 110 pounds. Watermelon is made up of 92% water. It's actually an excellent choice to stay hydrated and is low in calories. It's possible for a poisonous snake after being decapitated for hours to bite and inject venom and still kill you. According to Stephen Beaupre, biology professor at the University of Arkansas, snakes are well known for retaining reflexes after death. For venomous snakes like cobras and rattlesnakes, biting is one of those reflexes. In the 15 and 1600s, women who were seen gossiping, riotous, or troublesome were made to wear scold's bridle, also known as branks, as punishment. Disturbingly, it was made of an iron frame that encased the head, and at the front was a bridle or bit, like a horse, that extended into the mouth and held down the tongue with a spiked plate. It literally made it impossible to speak, so it was basically a muzzle for a woman. After Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, his body was taken on a 2-week, 1,600-mile tour via train. He was accompanied by the body of his son William Wallace Lincoln, who had died of typhoid fever at the age of only 11 and buried in the DC area of 1862. The train made a tour through 400 train stations, and viewings were arranged where his body was on display for mourners. In 2006, Michigan woman Lynn Sterling tried to sell a mummified human skeleton on eBay. eBay removed the posting because it violated their policy against selling human remains. Damn, it's hard times out here. It's possible for cats and dogs to be allergic to human dander. Dander is made up of tiny cells shed from hair, fur, or feathers, and though you mostly hear it in relation to pets, humans produce it too. The mantis shrimp can punch with the speed equal to a bullet, 50 times that of a blink of an eye. In fact, a blow from a mantis shrimp can easily break through the shell of a crab or mollusk. According to neuroscientist Glenn Jeffrey, who investigates vision at the University College London, the eye color of reindeer changes depending on the time of year. In the summer, they actually turn golden, reflecting more light through the retina, which helps them deal with the almost continuous Arctic summer daylight. In the winter, however, they turn a deep blue to help them deal with the almost continuous winter darkness. There's a signpost forest just outside of Watson Lake, Yukon. It was started in 1942 when a soldier named Carl K. Lindley was injured while working on the Alcan Highway. He was taken to the Army Air Station in Watson Lake to recuperate, and while he was there, he was homesick, so he decided to put up a sign of Danville, Illinois, his hometown. Tourists continued the tradition, and there are currently 72,000 signs from around the world. Since the first nuclear test explosion on July 16, 1945, at least 8 nations have detonated 2,054 nuclear test explosions at dozens of test sites around the world. There's something that exists called elimination communication, where instead of using diapers, the parent learns to use timing, signals, and cues to know when their baby needs to pee or poo. That sounds risky to me, just sign me up for some Pampers. Jackrabbits are actually hares, not rabbits. They can reach speeds of 40 miles per hour and jump as high as 10 feet in the air. The Ledu Wildlife Zoo in Zhongqing, China, put the people visiting the zoo in cages instead of the animals. The cages are stocked by lions and tigers, so the guests are warned to keep their fingers and hands inside the cage at all times. The unborn babies of a female sea louse actually chew their way out of the mother's insides to be born. A 63-year-old Tasmanian woman gave birth to her first baby in August of 2016, making her Australia's oldest new mother. According to a report from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's National Center for Health Statistics, American men now weigh on average 196 pounds, 15 pounds more than 20 years ago. And women weigh 168 pounds on average, which is 16 pounds more than 20 years ago. There's a flower called the corpse flower, which is called that because it smells like putrefying and decaying flesh, which only blooms every 7 to 10 years. Thank God. According to a study done in 2012 by Japanese researcher Hiroshi Natono, looking at images of cute animals like puppies and pandas at work not only improve your mood, but also boosts your attention to detail and overall performance. Einstein actually had an illegitimate daughter that was born in 1902. In the 1990s, Saddam Hussein had the Quran transcribed by an Islamic calligrapher in his own blood. He had over 7 gallons of blood drawn over a 2-year period. The voice of Chewbacca from Star Wars was created by using bear vocalizations as well as the sound of walruses, badgers, and the howls of sick animals. The opossum is the only marsupial in North America. Walmart employs 2.3 million people around the world. Boston has poems on their sidewalks that can only be seen when it rains. They are painted with special waterproof paint that only appears colors when wet. At the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, white mice were fed 24 hours before the athletes were fed to protect the athletes from food poisoning. If there was a problem, the food could be traced and destroyed before being fed to the athletes. A 19-foot-long Australian alligator has a bite force of 3,700 pounds. That's the highest bite force ever recorded. On January 12, 2011, 49 out of the 50 states had snow on the ground. That's almost 71% of the country. The only state without snow was Florida. Theodore Roosevelt's mother and first wife both died on Valentine's Day of 1884. His mother died of typhoid fever, and 12 hours later, his wife died from Bright's disease and complications from giving birth to the couple's first child 2 days before. Actor Steven Seagal received a PETA Humanitarian Award in 1999 for preventing the export of baby elephants from South Africa to Japan. In 1965, 16-year-old high school student Randy Gardner stayed awake for 11 days and 24 minutes. That's 265 hours straight. He holds the record for a human intentionally staying awake without the use of stimulants. To honor Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt, Berlin gave him his own 12-foot-high piece of the Berlin Wall. It weighed nearly 3 tons. He's not gonna take that home, is he? The richest man in Hong Kong, billionaire Li Ka-shing, yes, that's his real name, dropped out of school before he turned 16. He has an estimated net worth of $20.1 billion. LSD, or acid, was legal in California up until 1966. In 1980, Detroit gave Saddam Hussein the key to the city. The Olm salamander has a maximum lifespan of over 100 years. South Africa's Witwatersrand Basin, which is only 2.7 square miles, has produced more gold than any other continent. About 50,000 tons over 120 years, which is nearly half the gold ever mined. There's a pub in Athlone, Ireland called Sean's Bar that has been open since 900 AD. There are only 4 words in the English language that end with D-O-U-S. They are tremendous, horrendous, stupendous, and hazardous. A tiger's stripes are on their skin, not just their fur. More collect phone calls are made on Father's Day than any other day of the year. AT&T reported on average 83 million calls were made on Father's Day compared to 106 million on Mother's Day. But 27% more Father's Day calls were collect. Pearls will actually dissolve when immersed in vinegar. A pearl is mostly calcium carbonate, which is susceptible to even the weakest acid solution. On March 3rd, 1934, gangster John Dillinger escaped from a jail in Indiana with the help of a wooden gun that was smuggled into him by one of his attorneys. The first technical casualty of the Civil War was killed during a 100-gun salute. A cannon prematurely discharged and killed Private Daniel Hogue of the 1st U.S. Artillery. Somebody got fired for that. McDonald's in the Netherlands has a placemat called a McTracks, where you can make music while you eat. To make it work, you place your phone on the mat, get an app, and then compose your music, including your voice. According to the Guinness World Records, the United States holds the record for the most medals won at a single Summer Olympic Games. At the 1904 Olympics, held in St. Louis, Missouri, they won 78 gold medals, 82 silver, and 79 bronze for a total of 239. Cobwebs actually have antifungal and antiseptic properties that keep bacteria away, minimizing the chance of infection. In fact, in ancient times, the Greeks and Romans would use cobwebs to treat cuts. Soldiers also used spiderwebs to heal wounds. They would combine honey and vinegar to clean the wounds and then cover it with balled up spiderwebs. Nope, I would just rather die. Keep spiders away from me. The female Burmese python incubates her eggs by raising her body temperature by as much as 7 degrees warmer than air temperature. They accomplish this by frequently hiccuping or having muscle spasms. Ancient Egyptians used to put dead mice into the mouths of people to treat toothaches. They also mashed up dead mouse paste with other ingredients to treat patients with pain. Once again, rather die. In 2015, astronomers located a gigantic cloud of methyl alcohol called methanol surrounding a stellar nursery measuring over 310 10 billion miles across. Over time, it could actually help astronomers understand how some of the most massive stars in the universe are formed. Tibetan nuns can actually change their core body temperatures with a form of meditation called Jitumo. Using EEGs and temperature measurements, a team of researchers recorded the internal temperature of the nuns in the freezing cold of the Himalayas. The nuns were able to increase their core body temperature up to almost 101 degrees Fahrenheit. Researchers at Murdoch University in Perth have discovered goldfish as long as 12 inches and weighing as much as 4.2 pounds in the vast river in the southwest of Western Australia. They think it's the result of people releasing their goldfish into the water. This is because in the wild, that's how big they can grow. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and NASA, July 2016 was the hottest month in 136 years of record keeping. Dyslexics see numbers and letters backwards. It's a reading disorder, not a vision or seeing disorder, which means that Braille readers can also be dyslexic. According to a study published in the Journal of Behavior Therapy and Experimental Psychiatry, mood can affect how we walk and vice versa. We walk slump-shouldered if we're sad, bouncing if we're happy. Making people imitate a happy walk actually made them feel happier and sadder if they were imitating a sad way of walking. Queen Elizabeth and her husband Prince Philip are third cousins. Oh, that's weird and gross. According to Guinness World Records, the oldest tree known to have been planted by humans is 2,300 years old. The sacred fig or bo tree was planted in Sri Lanka in 288 BC. In India, as well as other parts of the world, standing babas are people who have taken a vow to never sit, lay, or squat for 12 years in order to transport their psyches into a realm of spiritual awareness not experienced by sitters. They stand before a small hammock in which to rest their arms during the day and torso at night. One leg must be on the ground at all times. Robert F. Kennedy failed 3rd grade. Smaller than his siblings, Bobby was often considered the runt of the family, and he even attended nearly a dozen schools as well. Governments in Iraq and India have imposed an internet blackout during exams to prevent students from cheating. You can now hire a self-driving taxi in Singapore. During the testing period, the cars had a driver in the front who could take over the wheel at any time and a researcher in the back who watches the computers. They're equipped with a detection system that uses lasers to operate like radar and 2 cameras on the dashboard to scan for obstacles and detect traffic light changes. Hurricane names are recycled every 6 years, with the exception of hurricanes that have been so deadly and costly that the future use of its name for a different storm would be insensitive. A Filipino fisherman found a 75-pound natural pearl and kept it hidden under his bed for 10 years. He discovered it in a giant clam and kept it as a good luck charm. It's 170,000 carats. According to a new study in the Journal of Hand Therapy, millennials have weaker muscles in their hands from all the texting, snapping, scrolling, and gaming that they do. Especially the guys. The upside is that they have stronger thumbs. There's a social anxiety called parthenophobia where you have an abnormal and persistent fear of young girls, specifically virgins. It's weird. Vampire bats have a protein in their saliva that acts as an anticoagulant, which keeps their victims' blood flowing while they feed. Researchers have actually been studying it to see if it can help dissolve blood clots and help with stroke victims. There are moonquakes on the moon that are similar to our earthquakes, only they are weaker and less common. In fact, there are 4 known types: deep moonquakes, shallow moonquakes, thermal moonquakes, and meteorite moonquakes. Canada is the largest country in the Western Hemisphere and has the longest coastline. In the 1904 Summer Olympics, gymnast George Iser won 3 gold medals, 2 silver, and a bronze, all while wearing a wooden prosthetic leg. There used to be a sport called ferret legging, where a ferret is strapped in a contestant's pants, sans underwear. The contestant who can stand the teeth and claws the longest wins. The ALS Association received $101 million in donations compared to $2.8 million the previous year because of the money raised by people doing the Ice Bucket Challenge. In the United Kingdom and Ireland, you can purchase cyberbullying insurance. The insurance company Chubb will pay out as much as $74,600 to help with court costs and relocation fees. In Shanghai, you can have your credit score lowered for not sending greetings or visiting your elderly parents. Hey mom? Yeah, I missed you. There is a hangover clinic in Sydney, Australia. For a whopping $200, you can get a 1-hour treatment which includes a half gallon of hydration drip, oxygen therapy, and vitamins to help you recover from a night of too much alcohol. Voyager 2 was launched on August 20th, 1977, and Voyager 1 was launched September 5th. They were sent on different trajectories, and Voyager 1 was put on a path to reach Jupiter and Saturn ahead of Voyager 2. Canada is larger than the entire European Union. In fact, it's 33 times bigger than Italy and 15 times bigger than France. If you have a fear of cheese, you have something called turophobia. In order to get street view of a desert, Google hires camels to carry its Trekker camera. The term CAPTCHA stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to tell computers and humans apart. I just call them annoying. Scorpions glow a bright blue-green when under ultraviolet light. According to National Geographic, there used to be 100,000 wild tigers in Asia a century ago, and now, due to poaching sadly, there are only about 3,200. According to a report by Michael Gibson Light, a doctoral candidate in the University of Arizona School of Sociology, ramen noodles are now more popular than tobacco as currency in US prisons. I don't blame them, it's delicious. The owner of the gin tub in Brighton, England, had a Faraday cage built into its ceiling to block cell phone reception. He wants his patrons to socialize the old-fashioned way, by actually speaking to each other. There are no natural lakes in the state of Maryland. All of the lakes are man-made by damming rivers. According to Guinness World Records, the only man to be struck by lightning 7 times was ex-park ranger Roy C. Sullivan. He suffered a lost toenail, lost eyebrows, a shoulder injury, leg burns, an ankle injury, chest and stomach burns, and had his hair set on fire twice. Unfortunately, he ended up taking his own life after being rejected in love. Jupiter's largest moon, Ganymede, has a saltwater ocean buried under 95 miles of ice. Scientists estimate that it's 60 miles thick, which is about 10 times deeper than our oceans. The female loggerhead turtle will sometimes travel thousands of kilometers to return to the beach where they hatch their eggs. In 1978, serial killer Rodney Alcala, who murdered 4 women and a child, appeared on a game show, The Dating Game, and won. Well, hopefully he paid for the meal.